Hello everybody and welcome to my top 25 players really quickly here, and this is early. I haven't done deep film study or final rankings, right? So I've been working on quarterbacks. That video is coming to you guys. I put out a poll whether you guys would like to see the top 20 or 25 receivers or top 8 quarterbacks. I think I put out there, and I think the quarterback's winning as we're currently speaking, but if you have a different opinion or want to vote for the wide receivers, go do that. It's in the community tab in my channel. I've just put up a poll, so let me know before the first rankings or final rankings episode comes out in the this draft process. But here we are going over my top 25 players, which will kind of give you guys a good idea where I stand with the early and the more well-known guys in this class, and then we'll have 5 honorable mentions. So this is basically top 30, but top 25 just sounds and looks better. My number 1 player overall is Marvin Harrison Jr., and there is good reason. I think this is actually quite popular, and I won't dive into it for too long. Marvin Harrison Jr. is extremely well-rounded, very high football IQ, understands a lot of what football is and just much about the game. He reads blocks and understands the DB's thought process really well, which I think makes him excel at an extremely high level. Marvin Harrison Jr., generational is obviously a word that's thrown out there for him and thrown around in general in the draft community nowadays, where Brock Bowers is generational, Joe Alt generational for some people. I've actually seen some people that are saying Joe Alt is up there with some of the best tackles they've evaluated. I don't know. This is kind of my first year diving in, especially with O-line, where my expertise are far out. So we'll be learning a little bit more about that as these upcoming drafts come in, prospects. I'll be watching them during the season and whatnot. But Marvin Harrison Jr., to get back on here, he is just very good, tracks over the shoulder, 6'4", 3, however he went to the combine. It's all impressive, should be over 200 pounds easily. He is so good. He, draws a lot of attention towards him too in college, and that led to people flagging or fouling him and whatever, just committing penalties. And he's ready after the catch. He makes some people miss initially. There is just extreme reasons and very solid case for Marvin Harrison Jr. to be the number 1 overall player on teams' boards. But now positional value and stuff like that might start messing with him, and I guess going against that debate there that you have for Marvin Harrison Jr. for your number 1 player overall, because obviously receivers are important, and especially in today's game, it looks like we're trending in a obviously a very air raid league nowadays. So we're seeing a lot of receivers step in and do a lot of things, and Marvin Harrison Jr. is so good. Great size. He's got literally everything. You have to poke the tiniest little holes in his game to find any cons. I think I said 3 or 4 drops against Purdue because there's weather, and he's not a high motor blocker on the 3rd level. It's so hard to find things to say. Marvin Harrison Jr. has bust potential. I think he can top and max out kind of as a top 10 receiver, and there might not be that he's an instant top 5 receiver, no doubt. I think he can max out at a certain level, but that's still so good being a top 10 receiver in the NFL. And number 2 on my top 25 player big board, whatever you want to call it here, Caleb Williams out of USC, the quarterback, and the clear-cut number 1 guy. He's very apparently the guy in this class on tape compared to everyone else. He shows everything you've ever wanted from a franchise QB. He's got the elite arm talent. Arm angles are ridiculous, and just gives him the freedom and the ability to do some of the crazy stuff that he does. He's got the great mobility, obviously sudden quickness to him. His athleticism is something that's kind of counted out of his game now. Obviously, he goes out and rolls out of the pocket, makes 3 guys miss, throws cross body 20 yards down the field, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. I think Caleb Williams still has an element with his feet, to move so well to the point where he's doing all this, and it's actually shown in the run game. I think he's a little underappreciated there. Arm talent's amazing, and the way that he shuffles through a pocket's pretty good. Now his pocket presence probably wasn't the best in college. A lot of fumbles, a lot of blindside guys coming around the edge. They went early on the I wouldn't say bad tackle play. It just sometimes it was a little inconsistent, and then when they'd get beat initially, I think Caleb Williams did a bad job with his blindside, and a lot of it came off the edge is where his fumbles, where he would be dropping back and obviously putting the back foot in the ground and ready to throw, and his left tackle got beat. He doesn't sense or feel the pressure and bats the football out, and so that happens a little bit with Caleb Williams. And It's not an amazing thing to kind of note down for him, but that's probably the biggest like struggle you'll see, other than some of the rambunctious kind of decision making when he's trying to play hero ball. But that obviously comes with the territory of him being like the best player for his team, and if he doesn't put up 40 points a game, they're going to probably lose because of how poor the defense played over this last year. So you can just look at it, and I'm not even saying that his decision making overall sucks. I think he'll still take the easy pass when it's there. I think it's when he's on a roll, they might be down, they might be trailing, whatever it is, and Caleb Williams has to make that heroic play. Sometimes he does get a little careless. Obviously, we saw Notre Dame, very good football team, and he knew that heading in and kind of came out of the gate, and not all cylinders, but just came out firing. Ended up costing him a little bit. I think he had 3 interceptions in that game, and it was just whatever. But then we saw games where he went up against Washington and a very talented Washington team, and he had some jaw-dropping plays against them. So you can kind of look at Caleb Williams either way. Everyone's going to try to poke the holes. Obviously, there's character concerns there. I think he kind of put those to rest at the combine, and to me becomes the solidified QB1. Now, not player 1, but player 2 and QB1 in this class, and it's pretty unanimous at this point. Rome Odunze comes in at number 3, and this is a very surprising number 3 for me. I don't think that I would have this when I'm done, but it just ends up, I mean, like, I look at the board and I'm like, okay, would I take anyone? Like, I obviously think in my mind, I'm like, I would take that, no. And then Drake May was like probably gonna be my 3, got through his tape, and I was pretty disappointed. So wait for the QB episode on that, or the QB rankings for me, because I've got I guess a new look at Drake May than I did before. I really didn't like his first like few games. I think I went through, watched I think about 6 or so, and I wasn't like I'm out on this guy, but I just wasn't as high as the general consensus. And then I hear about people talking about him, and I'm like, okay, obviously I like what they're saying about him, surely I'll like him. And then I went through this last film study, and to kind of sum it up for you guys, I was fairly disappointed. So I don't think Drake May makes this this caliber here at the number 3 overall on my top 25. So I guess Rome Odunze really comes up the top here. I'm not a gambling man, and Rome Odunze is a pretty sure thing. People are very confident in his ability to come in day one and start bringing talent to a football team and being productive right away, and that's good for him, and I'm happy for that. I watched 2 games of tape early on in the season, or early on in the process, and I wasn't a big Rome Odunze guy, but the more I watch, the more I hear. Interviews were great, and I think that he's well driven, well spoken, I guess. And Rome Odunze, I'm pretty confident that he's gonna be a good player. Now, how good will he be? I don't know. Like, if he reaches that Marvin Harrison Jr., where I'm talking about like a definite top 10 player or a wide receiver in the league, I think you're looking more in that 15 to 20 range at not at maximum. Obviously, he could be a very, very good football player. He's got some physicality that is kind of not lacking in this class, but I think him and Keon Coleman, body type wise, when you look at them, I think those are probably your best chances at a physical specimen that just blends athleticism and the play style really well. Xavier Legette has obviously been chopped down because he's 2 inches shorter than people thought, and I don't really see it as a big deal, but I guess people do. So there's just varying opinions in this receiving class, but Rome Odunze really came out to me and showed, like, obviously watched the college football semifinals, finals, all that good stuff, and Rome Odunze wasn't like a nice surprise. It kind of just reassured a lot of things that I had with him, and it was like great tracking, jump ball was amazing. His catch and run transition, I think, is very underrated. It's a very sound process for him. It seems like he's a pretty natural, fluid athlete. Back shoulder's very consistent. He's good at, like, again, tracking the football, kind of knowing where it'll end up being, and then he's actually good around the line of scrimmage, and it's kind of where you can see his athleticism kind of pop out to you, is after the catch and what he can do in short area, lateral agility, like that sort of stuff that I think is big for Rome Odunze. And I don't think this guy was built in a day. He was kind of a process coming along here as a receiver in college football, and he actually worked on his craft a lot, and especially in the contested catch department over this last offseason, when it actually worked out with the basketball team on rebounds and kind of working with that physicality, body to body, challenging guys, contesting rebounds in basketball. You're trying to go up and you're trying to beat the guy too. So a lot of it translated, I guess, and a lot of the work that he put in seems to help. So Rome was not built in a day, but he did a very nice job this offseason, really showed some determination with I think he had some punctured lung sort of thing going on, and he wasn't allowed to fly back. So I think he hopped in a car and drove 18 hours or something. I can't remember the story, but Rome Odunze is a dog, and he's definitely high up here for me mentality wise. Now we'll see if the tape matches when I get around to it. Haven't even started receivers yet. I'm taking my sweet time on these quarterbacks, if you guys couldn't tell, trying to get it right, seeing what I can do my first year around in this process with really deep draft analysis and all that good stuff. So Rome Odunze coming out number 3 on the big board. Again, I didn't expect it, but it's what's I guess it's what's held up in this situation. Now, Brock Bowers, to me, sitting here at number 4, is quite easily the tight end 1. There is no debate for me. I don't have Jatavian Sanders even in the same universe as Brock Bowers rankings wise, and that might, you know, scramble the tight end rankings pretty well because I'll do tiers as well. Brock Bowers is in a world of his own. He might actually come in a little undersized in teams and stuff like that. He might play a little bit lighter than you like, but he's a great up and down the board. Like, you can look everything with Brock Bowers. He's a very well-rounded player. He's by far the least criticized tight end in the class, and I think over the last few years, and that's saying a lot. Last year we had one of the best tight end classes probably we've seen in the last decade plus. So Brock Bowers, kind of just the way he plays, he has got great athleticism. I think the yards after catch is tremendous with him, and still plays with that physical edge that you really like. And he lines up all over the place. I think people kind of have this preconceived idea of a tight end that comes out nowadays that are in that area where Kyle Pitts was. You're not picking a tight end at 7 to put up 400 yards a year for you. With Brock Bowers, it's completely different. You're not just drafting a tight end, you're drafting a dynamic weapon that can go out there, line up in the slot, in line as a tight end, and even hell, put him out wide at wide receiver. He took more than enough snaps even this past year at Georgia, and I don't have any problems with that. I like Brock Bowers as an overall offensive weapon. I think he's a great blocker, maybe not as great on the move because he kind of struggles with leverage and the technique of blocking, but he gets his hands into a player's chest, it's pretty much over. He has put edge rushers on the ground. Brock Bowers is kind of a vicious blocker in line. Now, again, maybe not on the move. You're not trying to scheme him up as a Robert Tonyan or Mercedes Lewis type, where they're literally as good as a tackle in the blocking department, but he can haul people, man. The agile ability, it passes the eye test along with his hands. After the catch, he's ready to take contact, keep his feet churning, and really work with it. I would say that him and Carson Beck, in just the first year Beck was in there starting for the Georgia Bulldogs, they were so good connecting on the deep ball. It looked like their timing was there. It looks like Brock kind of made it easy. Obviously, was getting open well enough, and he can absolutely kill players in the intermediate and deep intermediate areas. And that's where that's where you pick apart an NFL defense, is with your run game. When you've got that going and you can pick someone apart through the middle of the field, you are going to win that football game, especially on the offensive side. Now, obviously you can't talk about the defense, because there are some teams out there that have a very unbalanced team and end up, you know, like we talked about the Caleb Williams of the world, where you have the expectation of going out and you have to hit a certain amount of points because your defense isn't that great. And now I'm kind of getting off track here, but Brock Bowers can kill teams, and that's very valuable. I don't think that there'll be any shortage of Brock Bowers on team boards when all said and done. I think that we've had our fun with moving guys up and down draft boards, but when we really look at it in the big picture, you can't put Brock Bowers low in this draft. It just cannot happen. Great player, again, really well rounded, and you can, you know, mess with the size or whatever. It doesn't handicap how well he blocks, in my opinion, and he doesn't always maybe rise to the occasion to make that special catch. Doesn't matter. I really don't think it does with the way that he plays football after the catch and the physicality. It just, something that kind of messed with me a little bit was the blocking when he doesn't have initial leverage and struggles with his technique more than his power. So that's where I'd kind of poke. The biggest one is his run blocking on the second and third level. where he had to move up for, but that's no biggie. Brock Bowers is such a good player, and people have kind of forgotten that, and he's kind of gotten overshadowed, if you will. I don't know if that's the correct term I'm looking for, or saying I'm looking for. And we're going Malik Neighbors here at 5, and it was not to a lack of credit to Malik Neighbors, but this was a tough one. I had a few players that I thought might jump in, but at the end of the day, I was like, there's too many people saying too many good things, and I just got a recent batch of all 22 for Malik Neighbors that I'll have to go through when I get to the receivers again. I only had 3 games before, and they weren't highly productive games, but he's got that freaky twitch and agility that everyone else sees, that I saw, and I think he comes back to the ball. Like he seems like a good, smart player that puts in the effort and maximizes every touch he gets. I think he's very efficient with the ball. Malik Neighbors, to me, it's not the lack of height. I think it's the bulky body and build, because we see some guys come in that are around 6 foot, but it's like, okay, 6 foot 180, that guy is built like a stick if he's long and lanky. But Malik Neighbors really has got that volume on his body, and I think that really solidifies his size. Now, if he came in 190, people might have would have not had him as high, golly, and Malik Neighbors might not be talked about like this, but he's got a thick lower half and the turn and run ability there, the fluid breaks, the quick feet, patient and good vision, honestly, behind the line of scrimmage when he got his opportunities back there. He's got good focus all around, catching the football when the ball's in the air, and crazy change of pace. The start stop was amazing for Malik Neighbors. So as we're starting to speed this process up and kind of get down the board a little bit, I hate to sell Malik Neighbors short, but like I said, just had a shortage of games on him, just got a recent batch, so I'll be heading into that tape here soon, probably within the week. If I had to guess, I'll get to the Neighbors, and maybe my opinion changes in the slightest, but we'll have to see. Joe Alt coming in number 6 here, and again, people were really happy with his measurements at the combine, and not only that, people are really happy with the tape. Guys, NBC Connor Rogers, he said that he's up there with Penei Sewell as like the best tackles he's evaluated, and I'm not with that. I don't know that. Like, again, I don't know a whole lot about offensive line play in general, like what to kind of base it off of, but Alt had some impressive tape when you look at him. He moves from one assignment to the other seamlessly. He can pave the way for a running back. Solid footwork and composure on an island. Can hold leverage without having his hips squared with the defender, and he's very consistent all the way around with his repetition between handwork, I guess his footwork, right, too. So his hand placement looks good. I like Joe Alt, and then he comes in and looks enormous, not enormous, huge and enormous combined. Enormous at the combine. Joe Alt is kind of solidified there, but we still are seeing some stuff here and some hype for my number 7 player. That is Talise Fuwanga, I guess, or Talise Fuwanga. I don't know how it is properly. I would guess Talise Fuwanga. But Oregon State's offensive tackle comes in right behind Joe Alt, and a tough chase for tackle 1, and even guys that had terrific combines that might actually have had a better showing in the drills than Talise Fuwanga maybe comes in like, oh, maybe his arms aren't as long as we thought, blah, blah, blah. Still a massive human being. And I think the tape speaks for itself. This last year was perfection. I'm not messing with that dude. Joe Alt looks like he's got a fun side to him. Troy Fautanu's also a dog. Olu Fashanu was a little bit, I guess, disappointing over this last year with a few things that you just don't see in a NFL like top 10 tackle, in my opinion, but he should still be picked very high. I'm not out on Olu Fashanu by any means, but I think that Fuwanga has solidified himself at this point to be ahead of Olu Fashanu this late into the process. Now, NFL teams might have that, down because of the upside of Fashanu. I think that's the way to say it. So we kind of learn names as we get to the process, and we're pretty late now, so it would be my bad if I'm mispronouncing any one of them. And Fautanu, I don't know how that one really came out. I think Fautanu is like pretty good. Fuwanga, Fautanu, Olufashanu. Like, we've got some names in this class. We're getting crazy. We're putting Bo Nix number 8 overall. I've loved this guy since the first time my eyes looked at his tape. He's a very clean prospect. I think that's the best way to really sum it up. He's very clean. You can't really sit there and watch a messy game and be like, okay, this guy's tradesy, arm talent, he processes well sometimes, he's good in it. Like, he's just very clean all the way around, and I think he has a better arm and more upside than people give him credit for. The upside might not be as much as May Daniels, but he offers a solid floor with a decently high upside still. I'm not saying he's going to be, you know, progressing the first 4 years of his career, get better every single time. I think, again, solid floor, clean prospect, like the way he thinks, sees the field, accuracy's good, ball placement there on the shorter throws, and kind of just at a starter level in the NFL, that's really good. And I think something that also people like in the NFL, so you don't have the Justin Fields of the world, is the idea of having like the internal clock, and his is so very, very good. He evades pressure with ease, can drop guys in no time. He can answer with guys right there in his face or on the run. Someone kind of, you know, gets into his way, boom, stops, sidearm to the check down. That might ultimately gain them 2 yards instead of losing 4 or 5. So, like, Nix, to me, very good. And you'll have to hear more on that in the quarterback, you know, rankings episode, but I'm not going to give it all out here. And I'm not going to go on no spew, but Bo Nix, one of my favorite players, if not my favorite player in this draft. And obviously I'm not bold enough to put him at number 1, and I know he's not up there, and he's probably going to fall down the board the more and more I watch these guys, and the more and more more and more prospects outside of the quarterback position that jump up the board. Bo Nix might find himself like 12 to 15 range for me on my big board when the actual draft comes around. So Bo Nix, Oregon's quarterback, came in at 6'2", 214. You'd like to see that 6'2", 220. That's around the average in the NFL right now. I'm still very thrilled with how Bo Nix has shown. I think Chris Sims is the only other person I've seen that might be just as high, if not higher than me on Bo Nix. That made me so happy to have someone else that's at least a semi-big name, at least be as big a fan, if not bigger, on Bo Nix than I am, because I was like, what is the catch with this guy? I can't find the thing to say. Drake May is definitely better. In fact, Bo Nix on a film grade, I'm not gonna lie, he scored significantly. Like, it's hard to tell until we get around to the whole, like I said, quarterbacks, rankings, whatever. He scored significantly better on the film grade than people would expect compared to some of the others. So do with that info as you will. We'll get into that. But again, clean prospect, someone I love. And Bo Nix popping up my board right now. And I've got the bold in me to say it, while Chris Sims is still high on him. That's all I'm gonna say. Drake May at the next spot. I believe this is number 9 on my top 25 players. Quarterback Drake May out of North Carolina. He's got size for days, size for days. Came in the combine 6'4", 223, kind of solidifying that. Now we get into the whole process here with Drake May and what I saw, I guess, not how I evaluated, but what I saw from him and how we're going to move with Drake May from here on out. Now, given he's only 1 spot behind Bo Nix, he is an upside player. I gave him more of the Jordan Love mold. He's a traitsy quarterback, and you'll need to develop the traits and hope for a top 10 QB 2 or 3 years down the road when he's put the in-game experience and the traits and the development, like, a lot of things come together in 3 years for Drake May. I wouldn't be surprised to see him in that top 10 quarterbacks in the league conversation if he's not out of the league immediately. Now we'll start with some of the cons with him that I saw. It was the inconsistent total accuracy. The processing was very absurd. I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna watch 2 more games on him. That's the only. I'm gonna take the 2 most games. I think Syracuse and whatever the next best game with the most amount of attempts, because I need to see him throw the ball. I'm going to solely pay attention to his processing during those 2 last games. Like, it's hard to sit here and say that when I'm not confident, but he is a one-read merchant. He has more swatted passes than you'd like, especially at his size. So far, he has the most I've seen in this class. At his size, bigger than everybody else, he has more swatted footballs at the line, which is not great. And if you guys don't know what I mean tip balls. So when you're at the line, you're throwing over the big offensive lineman, obviously, right? And Drake May, being the tallest quarterback, struggles with that the most. So there's some things here. And I think the deep ball is inconsistent all the way around. He overthrows at times or sails it towards the sideline, or even when he's outside of the pocket, you know, he has that loft on it and he's got good touch to kind of sail. The accuracy is just inconsistent. Good things to look at here, though. I think he's got active feet and there's constant movement and bounce to him. Now, whether or not he's always ready to throw the football, I'm not sure about that, but I do like the ability to keep his feet up and moving. And that's one thing you can kind of say with Bo Nix is he kind of has heavy feet if he has some extended time in the pocket. I don't see that with Drake May. And he's got obviously crazy arm talent, and his pocket presence was a lot better than I thought. Improv was good for him, but I think just things you look at, like the intangibles of his size, arm talent, pocket presence, and the feel for the game. And as an athlete, he's incredibly underrated, I believe now. I'm looking at these guys and I'm talking about his legs. Drake May he's got some legs on him. He's got a not a dangerous runability, but a surprising one. I think that it's not like, obviously, you're going to talk about the JJ McCarthy's and Bo Nix at that athletic level. I think Drake May is right there, believe it or not. And at 6'4", 223, a guy that moves like that, it's not bad at all. And I think he's got the confidence as well that you need in a quarterback. And there's just, you can kind of go on and on, poke holes in Drake May, but you can also look and say, here's the reason why he's so good and should be the number 2 overall pick. Now, there's heavy debates for both, but you guys, you get me? Like, it's kind of hard. And I might switch quarterback rankings come to that episode in the final draft, ranking episodes with the quarterbacks. The order might switch because at the end of the day, it comes down to who would you rather draft. I don't know. Drake May is a little shaky for me. Quinyon Mitchell, 10 overall here in the big 25 in the top of this class. And Quinyon Mitchell, he's had the best offseason and pre-draft process out of anyone this season, and there's debates about that. Obviously, there's some guys that have tested incredibly well at the combine, but no one better than Quinyon Mitchell, man. Comes in, solidifies his size, and then his press coverage at the Senior Bowl. Okay, we have our concerns heading to the combine, athletic wise. If he's obviously going to weigh in as big as he did at the Senior Bowl, he better run. Runs in the 4.33, I think it was 4.32 or 3 official time for Quinyon, and that solidified him to be CB1 in my opinion. And again, haven't really dove that deep, and especially on the defensive players in this class yet. But I really like Quinyon Mitchell. The upside he offers as a trait, he has all the traits of a lockdown corner in the NFL, and I think that he already has that elite production and the good signs that he'll be a good football player right off the bat. And not only that, but to develop and get a better understanding. He's got the right mentality. Like, it kind of stacks on with Quinyon Mitchell, and I'm sure you've heard a lot of buzz on him, so I'm not going to hit on him for too long here, nor do I have any notes. Like I mentioned, like, haven't really dove in. So Quinyon at number 10. Troy Fautanu, the tight end, at 11. Now, obviously, I'm joking. He's an offensive tackle, but if you watch him at the combine, this guy's freaky. I've never seen anyone move as fast as he is. Not only to stack onto that, he has the second most violent tape I've watched, other than Talise Fuunga, when it comes to just mauling in the run game, getting to where he's supposed to be. Fautanu, very fun to watch. And then the movement skills at the combine were insane, and how he crushed those drills. And then you look at the arm length, and it's not even like, okay, this guy can play on an island as a tackle. And watching a game or two to start with Fautanu, I was like, why is he being projected as a guard? Really came out and solidified that as a tackle through his pre-draft process so far. And I think that, I'm not gonna lie, I think he's gonna be up there for some people. He could even be tackle 2 off the board at this point. And we'll talk about the tackle class because there's a lot of them, and there's still guys to be named here in this top 25. When it really comes down to it, how many guys move like Fautanu at his size? People like, oh, you have to move in, and then boom, comes out and he's way longer, bigger than people expect. And you're like, he could stick out there on an island. He plays with a good lower half. I'm not saying I know everything about, offensive line play, but it seems to me like he's got the power profile, then the athleticism really stacks on top of that, And that alone is more than enough, I guess, to push his draft stock up. And especially if he's going to play a more valuable position than guard and go out play tackle in the NFL, we're going to see Fautanu have one of the most varied draft conversations. Like, he'll be ranked tackle 1 for people out there. I know it. People want to be different. 1. 2, people rely on traits. Fautanu's a very traitsy player when it comes to projecting what he could be in 5 years compared to everybody else. Joe Alt's obviously a phenomenal player. Talise Fuanga, solid player. Those guys maybe have a capped off upside, unlike Fashanu and Fautanu. So based off what you like, if you like traits, Fashanu and Fautanu are your guys, man. Like, they move so well, light feet, all that. You can go down the checklist here with this tackle class and check different things, and so many things. Every tackle you look at, we already named some of them. Tyler Guyton's extremely, underrated at this point now. People are still looking at him and saying, okay, he's a top 20 player in this class, but he's not even being drafted in the first round in some mock drafts. Like, it's kind of funny when we get down to it. We're not going to know with this tackle class how many go in the first round. Do 8, do 9 go in the first round? It seems like some people want it to be that way, so we'll have to see when the time comes. But Fautanu at number 11 for me on the big board, or the top 25. Jaden Daniels, another impressive player in this draft, and I think at quarterback, people have him so very high, and I'm not going to say like he's really low for me. There's just some things that I don't like about him, and we'll start with Brian Thomas's tape. The most frustrating thing about Jaden Daniels was how many times Brian Thomas Jr. was missed on tape. It's not ridiculous, but it's pretty apparent where he's a little slow through his progression, and especially when he likes his first read, he might, lag or get held up on that. And his progressions, like, obviously go, boom, Malik Neighbors is right there. I'm going to watch the talented player Malik Neighbors is, and if he gets open, I'm going to feed him the ball because he's a monster after the catch. Sometimes that just didn't happen for him, and then he'd, look to check down, and he's like, I see a run lane, I'm going that way. So processing, there's some stuff you'd like to get. I think they left a lot of stuff on the field, I should say. I think that's just kind of the ability there, and I think he challenged himself when he really doesn't have to. At times, it wasn't very consistent, but there are plays where he's fading, maybe making it a little bit more challenging for himself. He looks downfield a lot, and he has his mind made up late in plays, looking downfield instead of finding the check down. And I kind of mentioned that with the progressions, where if he likes something, and if the first route that is on his progressions, right? So your first progression, your first read is what it's called. If you have a guy on a post and it's a deep post and you really like that, you think it's going to get available, if pre-snap you like the safety alignment, you're going to look for that. And then say he has a shallow cross underneath, and he just says, hey, go block for me, I'm going to run if this post doesn't get open. Instead of just giving your receiver the ball underneath and maybe letting him work a little bit, he kind of makes his mind up on that, and that's not terrible. And I like the me first mentality, but kind of whatever. He has some bad sacks on tape. It kind of reminds me of JJ McCarthy, where they kind of run around circus clown and then they go down. It's pretty much as simple as that. He gets rocked often and has all day. And those two things I'm sure you've heard quite a bit. Maybe the all day thing, maybe not. I don't hear a whole lot of people talking about how loaded Jaden Daniels' weapons are. I mean, I guess I hear that a lot, but you don't hear about the time of day he had to sit in a pocket and make his decisions. On tape, it's very, very apparent, and I don't know why it's not being talked about, but he can step back, right, and he keeps those active feet bouncing, looking, all right, okay, and then we're running. Like, he has so much time in the pocket, and again, he gets rocked often, and he really should be more careful as a runner. But there's so many things that he's great at. He's a better runner than I believe rookie Lamar Jackson was, and he kind of floats as a runner. He's more of a straight line guy, has some great speed. He's got a great escapability in one-on-one situation versus defensive linemen and even linebackers. He doesn't look eager to run. He's more of a pass first than run, and I'd say, like, on a progression term, I would say his third progression is to take the run lane and go. But if it looks really appealing to him, then I think that becomes his second or even first. But he can take a hit. He always comes back, and maybe in the Alabama game there's the exception to that, but it was a flagged hit from I believe Dallas Turner, who's a player in this class. But he's willing to check down if his legs aren't there. So if that run lane's not there, it is still nice to see him take the completion. He's elite on design quarterback runs with no spy. So if there's the defense isn't accounting for the middle of the field or Jaden Daniels in general, and he splits linebackers, whatever. God damn, I want him running the football. There's no other way to say it. He's really good and understands the ability to lead receivers. Is again, time to throw is good, and the ability to look down the field and a guy's already pretty far down the field to time it up with his eyes and then kind of loft it. I think his arm's a little overrated at this point, but he is a guy that kind of just has touch on the ball, and the velocity really isn't there, but arm talent is all right, give or take. I think he has a worse arm than Bo Nix. Now, that might not be well received, but I like Trevor Sickham, a head draft analyst over at PFF, where he said Jaden Daniels' arm has been romanticized heavily, and I believe it. I really think that is the case. Haven't dived in to Daniels every single game of tape, but I've watched, I think, 5 up to this point, and Daniels, to me, offers a better floor than people think and a lower ceiling, but still a great ceiling. I'd say a higher ceiling than Bo Nix. It really comes in with like the things you like and don't like, and that's where this board, like, it's my board. I'm not saying this is how the NFL looks at them. I'm not accounting for positional value. I'm saying personally, Daniels is just a little bit further down. Olu Fashanu, next guy we'll talk about, maybe a little further down than people like. I still like Olu Fashanu. I'm still rooting for him, and hopefully his draft stock holds high and finds himself in the top 10. Getting drafted to, I think, the Jets is where it ultimately, comes down to for Fashanu. I don't think he'll be tackle 1 off the board at this spot, and I think that there's just too much of a lack of power element in his game. He kind of struggled when guys really got into his chest, and the first thing that NFL teams are going to do is get into the inexperienced guy's chest. I think a guy that handles power a little poorly, I hate to say poorly, I'd say not the highest level, and that's not the best aspect of his game. I think they're going to say, hey, with our NFL power off the edge, imagine TJ Watt ripping Fashanu into pieces, and even week 1, how defeated that can, make a guy, whatever. Fashanu isn't up to par with important things, and that is what you kind of lack, and so you're projecting a lot. And Fashanu had a really good strength and conditioning program at Penn State, and just didn't seem to pick up on the elite power that you're going to need in the NFL to be one of the best tackles in the league. And again, you're projecting, he's a traitsy man, he's got some light feet, he's only been playing for a few years, and you can look at him and say, this is our tackle 1 because what he can be. And that is not how I like the safe pick. Again, I mentioned it with Bo Nix. I'm not a betting man. I don't go out there and I don't go I'm not I'm just not a betting man. I like the safe picks, some efficiency, like that sort of stuff. So Fashanu, just lower on my personal board. But again, I'm rooting for the guy, and I think that he'll still be decently high up there on some teams' boards. It just kind of matters on what you prefer. Jared Verse, the next player up to the whatever next player on the board for me. Jared Verse, Florida State edge rusher, very good power profile. I think I actually have some notes on. I think he's the only defensive end I have notes on currently. So that is a little embarrassing this far into the process, but it's just what we're dealing with. All right, people. So get with me here. I'm a little late to the party, if you will. But yeah, okay. Relentless to start it off. Great motor, and he'll stand up strong. He's got some incredible power. Speed to power looks really good as well. He does stumble quite a bit, and even with a mobile quarterback, he'll still push inside and give that run lane out. So I'm not really a fan of that. I think he needs to contain a little bit better, but you can look at him and he has some real get up off the line. It showed in his 40 time. He had an incredible combine, and again, just kind of got overshadowed, if you will. His speed to power is amazing. The push and drive he really puts into a tackle to make that guy struggle, to say the least there. I think that's kind of a great aspect of his game, I guess. He stays with the play, tracks what's going on, and has good vision in the backfield, whether or not it's, a play action, whatever it ends up being. Jared Verse tracks the play pretty well, and Verse, to me, a very good player, and I have him above this next guy because of the floor. And again, you're looking at upside for some players, traits for edge rushers, and it's just not the way I roll. Dallas Turner, the next player up for me, back-to-back edge rushers, and it's Dallas Turner, Alabama's edge rusher now. He ran a 4.47 or 6 at the combine. I don't know what his official time is. I just remember seeing the 4.47 on TV, and I wasn't surprised, to be honest. I was actually actually, you know, I was not expecting that, but I was like, okay, I've heard crazy things about this guy, and the realm of possibilities are, you know, endless for Turner. So that really didn't like pop off the screen when I saw it, and I wasn't really, again, surprised. So Dallas Turner, phenomenal athlete, obviously. And we see the size bulk up this past year. He played probably heavier than he weighed in at the combine to run that a very impressive time. To me, I think he actually has a solid floor. He's a very well-rounded player, run and pass. He's got good at both over this past year, and he's got good tape on both this past year. I think, again, you're just projecting a little bit more. Like, not a whole lot can really be said about Dallas Turner. Again, it's just one of those guys that tests like a freak, that has good college tape and traits to back it up, and that goes high in the NFL draft, and we'll see where he kind of ends up being. He probably will ultimately be the favored edge one in this class, but Jared Verse type of football to me is slightly better. Obviously, these guys are back to back here, and this might vary as the process goes on for me. Jackson Powers Johnson, the next player for me, Oregon's interior defense or offensive lineman, can play guard or can play center. Probably would come in and be a center right away. He's a huge center, and not the typical size you like to see. You like the more agility at the center spot, but for some teams, Powers Johnson can really be the guy. I think in pass heavy offenses, he'd be a nice like one to hold the pocket up in the middle. I don't think you're seeing a lot of that anymore with guys with his size, but he's great in his zone blocking assignments. He assists a lot of his teammates. He's got that good awareness. He doesn't really struggle with losing leverage, especially when guys even get into his upper body. You might look like initially he's lost the battle, but he's gonna win the war. I mean, the way he fights back, it's pretty good, and the way he works his legs under him again to kind of find that leverage and to get back underneath and get the extra time and make sure the guy doesn't really get past him. He's great when he moves to the second level, especially one-on-one with a linebacker, and at his size, like, the linebackers might be able to juke him or kind of keep him in front of him, but still backtracking, whatever it is. So he always has the great ability to finish the rep too. It's not like he's sitting there blocking the guy from getting the guy behind him. It's not like that. It's forklift, throw down, I'm gonna jump on you and I'm gonna hurt you. That's kind of Jackson Powers Johnson, and the ability he had to make people laugh in the interviews of the combine, like, that's also very good to see. He seems like a very light guy, leader on the team, all that good stuff, and I think he's got good focus from getting one to another. So, like, again, I think the awareness is outstanding there, and I think one thing that can kind of come back to get him is he's a little grabby at times, which can lead to penalties here and there at the next level that probably weren't called in college or anything. So they can leave it a little bit, you know what I'm saying? There's still way more plus than there is negative, and this is one game of tape I think I watched on Powers Johnson. Like, I think I scanned through it to get a little bit of, for something, I can't remember, but just to get a little bit of a read on him. And yeah, he's really good. I really like Jackson Powers Johnson as a human being, it seems, and as a player on the football field. Byron Murphy, and he moves incredibly well, and I think he was another guy that had a great combine that might have just gotten, thrown out a little bit of shade from Braden Fisk to put him in his shadow. Byron Murphy's still a phenomenal pass rusher. I think he has the ability to be special at the next level when it comes to rushing the passer from the inside. I don't think he'll have the every down ability to stand up, be a haul against the run, and push a pocket in every play. I don't think Byron Murphy's your Jeffrey Simmons, Dexter Lawrence build at all. He's a lot lighter, and primary focus for him is to get into the pass rush. And you're like, then why would a guy like that go so high? It's his freak ability to do it so well at such a good size, and he lives in the gym, and it shows. That guy is huge. I think 305 pounds, might play a little lower than that the next level, but he lives in a gym, man. I mean, look at him. He's a junkie, all right? And Byron Murphy, not many guys are built like that, and I think that we're seeing a new type of league. Obviously, pass first, you're seeing the majority, the air raid offense, all that good stuff. You need to be able to get to the quarterback, and from the interior, that's pretty valuable right now. And Byron Murphy Jr. has the ability to become a very special player in that category. I really like that for him. Brian Thomas, at his freak size, comes in, runs a freak 40, and just looks overall natural, calm, poise, all that. And he actually kept, when he was like jogging, obviously he's got these longer legs, he's a little bit bigger than his competition at the combine, but they showed the GPS numbers, and he was kind of jogging along, but he's still going 19 to 20 miles an hour, and that was one of the fastest times through the drills. He looked really good. He just looks natural as a pass catcher. I think he's the one I said has like kind of clouds for hands, and at his size, to have the shake and the gap GAT ability with the lateral movement skills. It's amazing. I really, really like Brian Thomas Jr. and I thought I was a high man on him through this draft process to find people are blowing this guy out of the water after his combine. I'm like, I was expecting 4.44, 4.45, somewhere in that area. That's literally where I was like, expectations are set. Comes out there, runs a 4.33, and I was like, okay, then he must have weighed in at like 195, because that is incredible. No, 209, I believe. So Thomas, absolute freak. And I love his ability to just have a well-rounded game. I think people are kind of labeling him as this one-sided receiver, but he blocks so well. And again, I think his hands look like clouds. He's got the gat lateral movement skills. That's literally one of the notes. He could be a nifty weapon I put out there. Maybe that's an old saying that I got, picked up there from an old person, but nifty. All right, I think he's a great weapon out of the backfield. And again, I think he's absolutely certified as a blocker with great awareness to avoid injury or any, risk to the lower half. And with enough time, he can beat the DB and safety over top in some formations. And it's impressive when you could do both. If you have a safety that already knows you're a threat vertically and you can still beat him, and the corner that's playing man on you, you beat them both. Yeah, you absolutely leave him in the dust. It's still very impressive to me. And I mean, he beats deep one-on-one coverage often. Daniels doesn't even look at his way. He doesn't even look at that side of the field. All right, it's very frustrating. And we already sung our song there with Jaden Daniels and something I didn't really like with him. Whatever. But he works open. Even if Daniels, targets a covered Malik Neighbors, he works open right as he's throwing it or right before, and we get to that. But not an every down sprinter. Looks like he saves energy or something every here and there. Visibly upset when he's missed or is avoided as a read most time, rightfully so. Like, I agree with him. I'm sitting here in my chair watching tape and going like, throw the ball to him, throw. And it just wasn't it never came to fruition there. So whatever. He works alongside a good wide receiver, Malik Neighbors, someone you might know the name of. End up being a very high player for me in this here exercise, my top 25 players. Neighbors was good, so obviously attention goes towards him. Brian kind of had a lack of that attention, but definitely had the downfield stuff. People were worried about Brian Thomas. He's not much of a possession type target either, so I kind of see that side of the argument for him being pretty one-sided. But again, just frustrating tape. What could have been, left a lot out there with his quarterback or whatever. So I think he actually works really well with an improvising quarterback, by the way, too. One thing I just wanted to add in there, because he's good with a quarterback that's working off schedule and all that good stuff. And there was a weird thing. I'll add one more. I thought he was kind of scared of contact at times, just cautious. I don't think he was like scared to take a hit or anything. I think he was like really cautious with the way he's dealt with either blocking or run after catch underneath. Like, if he comes out of the backfield, say he has a wide open like jet sweep, he gets to the edge and there's a safety 210 pounds and he's ready to lay the wood, lay his shoulder right into your chest, and he'll just like kind of sidestep out of bounds, lose an extra like 2 yards instead of challenging the guy on a physical manly limit there, or I guess on a level where you are testing your manhood to go. Like, you ever seen the goats, the mountain goats with the big like rolled up horns like the Rams, and then they literally go like boom and they like literally lunge into that? I think that Brian Thomas doesn't really have that mentality. Now that's fine, because he's such a fun player to watch, and I still think he's so very good. Yeah. Leatu Latu, everyone has basically just been said and done with Leatu Latu. He's a very polished pass rusher, polished as he gets through the last few draft classes. Maybe Will Anderson's up there with his hand usage, but Leatu Latu with the game plan he has and the pass rush plan and thought beforehand and the extra, curricular stuff that the nuance in Leatu Latu's game. No one has topped that, in my opinion, in this draft. And it's just kind of where the ceiling is compared to other guys. And Leatu Latu, unfortunately, falls just like 4 spots short behind very good and phenomenal players. He's still in a very good crowd, but of the other edge rushers in this class for me right now. Now, tape study is going to be fun, because I think Leatu Latu, I love watching those hands just like, fight, get the one on the shoulder and kind of like, not tease him a little bit, but get him to bite up. And then he like dips underneath. Like, very, very fun to watch Leatu Latu. And I'm sure that'll kind of appeal to me on tape. And I'm sure he might be up a little bit higher than this next time around after we're done with the tape study there. So Leatu Latu, edge rusher out of UCLA, talented man, talented, and I really like the ability to come into the league and be solid right away and then learn, pick up new habits, like that sort of stuff. I think he comes in with a very solid floor and very good hands. Terrion Arnold, the Alabama corner, I'm a little bit lower on this corner class than it seems other people are, and especially Arnold. People say I'm a little lower on him. I think he's still corner 2 here, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, we've only had Mitchell ahead of him, and Arnold's still going here. I believe this is my 20 spot here for Terrion Arnold, which is fine. I'm fine being the odd man out. I think he's a little inconsistent in terms of like overcommitting or just like lack of, coverage, footwork, got caught flat-footed, whatever it is. I think there's just inconsistencies and minor things you can point out with Arnold, and that kind of drops him from that corner 1 spot for me. And then Cooper DeJean's pretty close to him in my opinion, but Arnold is still very good. Didn't athletically test as well as I had hoped. People were talking 4.3s for him. Didn't come around, but still very fun character in the combine interviews. Really enjoyed listening to him talk to some of the interviewers out there. Chris Sims and Rick Spielman kind of stand out as the 2 like best interviews for Terrion Arnold. And then obviously with Stacey Dales on the sideline, down on the field when he was actually on NFL Network. Very heartwarming stuff for Terrion, and I don't know, he's good. I don't know how to evaluate corners for shit, and I'll put it that way because I think that's the best way to leave it. I don't know really what I'm saying, and I've seen more Quinion than I have Terrion Arnold, so put that into perspective, put yourself in my brain, and kind of do that math. Jerzon Newton, the guy no one seems to talk about anymore. He got some hype early on. People were asking, people were looking, and now he is left back there. I think he's shoved in a closet somewhere where people aren't allowed to talk about him. I think that his name is like forbidden, because I ain't heard anything on Jerzon Newton in terms of how good he is. I think he has the potential. With how good I've heard his tape is, I watched 1 reel and he's gonna shoot up. I know that. It's just who shoots down and who does he replace is my biggest thing right now. And I think he's gonna shoot up eventually, like here for me, especially when I get to the interior defensive line. Like that'll really solidify what I think of Jerzon Newton. But I know he is not getting enough credit for what he did this year, and he was very good. Again, tape was crazy against Wisconsin. You watch that 1 game, he had some very disruptive place, to say the least, and he seemed like a good happy-go-lucky type of guy. Maybe didn't weigh in as well as he wanted, whatever. Newton, put that aside, all right? All the whatever people have been talking about, never shy away from the good players, the good football players, your rankings, everything like that. So I'm trying to stand by that the best I can, but I've also been a little bit of a coward for pushing him as low as he is. He is right there with Byron Murphy for D-tackle 1, and here they are only 1, 2, 3, 4 spots away from one another. So I'm not really worried about that, because I think that still represents them still being generally close. So Jerzon Newton, a very fun player to watch. Power profile is amazing. The way he plays the game is amazing. We'll see Jerzon Newton. We'll see where I stand on him after I'm done with the full tape study and evaluation. I'm pretty sure it's going to go up. And you're like, well, then why didn't you just put, I just don't know who's going to go down. Graham Barton, a man with a nasty means to his game. I think he's got a very fun game to watch, I guess. I think that his, the level of play wasn't as good as it gets, especially at tackle. You're like, okay, this guy's moving inside, and we'll see what he looks like there. But I think he's got the nasty demeanor to play there. I haven't watched a whole lot, I'm gonna be honest, but it just looks like he's good at standing his ground, and I do like the overall I guess versatility, you could say. If you need a replacement for a game at left tackle and he's already a second string left guard, stick him at tackle for a game, test him out for a half or whatever. And if you want to kick him back out inside or whatever it is, you can. I like the availability there. And Graham Barton, again, just a very good player. And I think, again, the one thing I saw and remember about Graham Barton, because I watched 1 game like way back. I think he just held his ground really well and just has some exciting things to go with Graham Barton. You know, like when you're drafting Graham Barton, I think that is an interesting draft conversation, because you really don't know when it comes down to it how teams are going to evaluate and value a guy like Barton. So again, just an interesting draft conversation to be had with him. And when we get to the offensive line in this class, when I personally get to the film study, I'll have a lot more to say, especially about Grant Barton, because again, he's just a topic right now, the back end of the first round, early second, and the player he can be. Cooper DeJean, a player I have just making my top 25, and I think it's for good reason. All right, I think the Iowa corner, just for the pure reason, now I've heard this again, Trevor Sikkema, PFF head draft analyst, says he could be a Jalen Ramsey type versatility 3 years down the road when he gets a little bit more polished, good habits, all that good stuff. He can literally play nickel, he can play in the box, he can play safety, and then he can go play boundary against one of the better corners in the league. DeJean has that same athletic, I guess, level to him. His brain seems to work at a high level. I like DeJean when it comes down to the corners in his class. I don't think he profiles bad at all, but I think his versatility can ultimately rise, or I guess make him, or raise him up boards here. And we'll have to see where he goes in the NFL draft. Another very, very fascinating conversations in this draft. We just talked about Grant Barton. How about Cooper DeJean, man? It's kind of hard to see where teams will value that, along with an injury actually he's currently going through right now. I think he's still expected to make his pro day at Iowa, and we'll have to see where that comes out at for him. But DeJean, I don't think many people are, I don't think he's getting the hype he was back when he was playing college season, all that good stuff. So Cooper DeJean still kind of lingering around this 25 area for me. Braden Fisk is actually making my top 25. This is probably one of the more bold things I've done, up there with Bo Nix in this video. Braden Fisk is like 35 is like the highest I've seen him. Maybe 33 or 4 for Daniel Jeremiah. He's up there. I think that this guy, I mean, did you watch him at the combine? It's kind of the Troy Fautanu story where he's moving like he shouldn't. He should not be moving like that. He has some great interviews, and he's a big guy. He's got a body, I hate to use bowling ball, but he's like thick everywhere. And at that profile, I mean, what did he weigh in at here? It was 6'3", 295 at the Senior Bowl, where he looked more explosive than ever and faster than anyone there at the defensive line position. And then Dwayne Carter kind of gave him a little bit of that, you know, a little bit of that conversation, but he knows where to put his hands. He understands the angles, leverage, putting a guy in a bad position. The thing comes back to him is with short arms. Like, he's got these dino arms, 31 inches or 30 inches, whatever they ended up being at the combine. I have 31 here for the Senior Bowl. It doesn't matter, dude. Did you see this guy's tape? One, and the power that he builds, and then gives them that false sense of security, if you will. It's like when you're holding someone up in a trust fall, and then you kind of, you know, push them away, get around, whatever, gets around the edge. I think that's how Braden Fisk would do a trust fall. If someone like openly, like, just kind of, you know, went back into him, and say this is kind of how the offensive lineman approached it, was just to get all of his leverage in there because of the short arms. I think he could honestly maneuver with the quickness and the hand usage and understanding that sort of stuff. I think that the level Braden Fisk can be at the NFL level is not being countered enough. I mean, not even being talked about enough. But when it comes to his draft stock, I think he's an early second round guy, and positional value, obviously we talk about him and he's more one-dimensional. He's a very high player for me, obviously. I think he's sitting here at 24, and it's not to the point where I'm going all out on Braden Fisk first round of all my mock drafts. You might sneak in there every here and there, because again, it's kind of like what you hear is what your mock drafts are, but what you see is what your, like, you know, your draft board looks like, I guess. So my personal board has Braden Fisk way up here. I don't know, we'll see where it all what it all comes down to with me in this interior defensive line class. But two guys I really like, Fisk and Dwayne Carter. All right, I'm just gonna say that. Tyler Guyton is the last guy in my top 25, and I mean, this guy's huge. I think 6'7" or so, 330, 325, somewhere around there he'll be. Long arms. I like the way, or does he have long arms? 34 and 2/8. That feels long, maybe not incredible, but yeah, Guyton overall. Just a good job at the Senior Bowl to kind of bring his name up, and then did a good job maintaining that through the drills at the combine. Now, I don't think he really changed many or a lot of opinions or turned a lot of heads or whatever. Said he didn't look like the sexiest guy at the combine. We obviously had Troy Fautanu there to take that one. But Guyton at the Senior Bowl is kind of what stuck out, and a lot of people were saying he should run a lot faster than he did at the combine because he's light. But you can still look at the splits, the agility drills, all that good. Guyton's still a very good player, and it's not like he's bad right away, but I think he's more of a project pick, and we'll have to see where things kind of line up for him in the NFL. Now, if he lines up right tackle, he's a first-year starter and he has to hold up. I don't know if he has a good first year, and he might look Evan Neal-ish because he's so unrefined, but he's got so many good traits. And again, we'll have to see where the NFL stands on him first, and then second, how he ends up playing into, I guess, playing his first year. His rookie year will kind of decide a lot for him. Even his first half a season, we'll kind of get a good read on where Guyton is and where Guyton can be, showing what he shows at the NFL level and showing what he doesn't. And my top 25 to 30 goes JC Latham, Nate Wiggins, Amarius Mims, TJ Tampa, and Jonah Ellis, the edge rusher out of Utah. TJ Tampa, the Iowa State corner. Amarius Mims, the tackle out of Georgia, and Nate Wiggins, the Clemson corner, along with JC Latham, the Alabama tackle everyone knows about. I wanted to put him up there, but the bad side of his game, they're just too bad. So I skirted Tyler Guyton right up there in 25 over JC Latham, and I'm really questioning that right now. So we'll have to see where we ultimately end up when we make our final board or whatever, big board. We'll have to see where we go with that one. But that will be all for me. Thank you for watching. If you guys enjoyed, give them a like, go down, subscribe, go watch the past content on the channel. I guarantee you will like it, and see you guys next time. This has